Hi, welcome back to another episode of Sweet Talks. I am your host, Pulse. Today we have with us the founder of Athens DAO, Xenofon. Hi, Xenofon. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
First things first, maybe you can tell us a little bit about your background and what it is you do.
Absolutely. So I've been in the space of crypto for at least 7-8 years now. I've been as a fan of Bitcoin in 2012, 2013, and I joined the industry officially in 2016, right in the start of the ICO bubble and craze. I have a background in business and entrepreneurship and startups, and I've been in the space since I graduated college, really, even before that, I'd say. I've been active in the industry in the States and in Europe and in Greece, which is where we're based right now and have Athens DAO. And really, I care a lot about stable coins, crypto economics and tokenomics, and the incentive structures. Really, that's what I care about the most. And because of my job or my work on policy over the past few years during the pandemic, I've also become quite knowledgeable over what it means to be regulated and compliant and what is going to be required from the Web3 space to mature and enter the mainstream financial space, as well as get used by institutions that can even include governments and large corporations, right? So to summarize, I've been in this space for quite some time. I care a lot about tokenomics, crypto economics, and I've become acquainted with policy. Some other details in there is that I have a master's degree on digital currency from University of Nicosia, which is something that I recommend for a lot of people who want to enter the space. I'm the founder of Athens Labs, really, which is building Athens DAO for the community of Athens DAO. And I have a few other projects that I'm helping and involved in, including an NFT project called Keros Idea, and an NFT project that helps raise money by selling art created by IB students in Athens. There's, of course, other projects that I help and advise, but let's take it to there because I think that's enough.
First things first, before we even get into, what Athens DAO is essentially, I just want to say, because there may be people that don't understand what a DAO is. It's the acronym stands for Decentralized Autonomous Organization, but maybe in your words, you can explain to us what that means for your company, what it is you're trying to do.
Yes, so the first thing I want to say is that DAOs are not strictly a company, although it's a collection of people with a shared mission, which is, I guess, what many people would say a company would be. It's a DAO is an organization that is based on smart contracts and on-chain and off-chain governance combined in a way that makes it perform as a business would. So it's the crypto alternative of a company, as you'd say. Now, the second part of your question was what it really means to have a DAO, right? And it really means that you are creating an entity that is allowed to incentivize people to achieve a certain amount of targets or goals.
So sorry to interrupt, but there's some feedback from your headphones. Maybe we can try with just the microphone from the phone, see if it's better.
1 second. Is it better?
Go on.
Yes, let's do it.
Yeah, this is much
okay,
better.
Lovely. So I hope that the tech issues are fixed, and let's move to the next question. I think I covered what DAOs are, right? Perhaps a bit more about what it means for Athens DAO. We can expand a bit more on what Athens DAO is, I think, right?
Yeah. If you just want to tell us exactly what you guys are doing, what you're trying to solve.
Absolutely. So Athens DAO came out of a community that I created a year and a couple of months ago. So at the start of the crypto asset I wouldn't say bubble this time around, but a cycle, right? So we know that every few years there is a cycle where prices drop a lot and then gradually pick up and go way beyond their all-time high. And we've seen this happen multiple times in Bitcoin, and the rest of crypto has followed. So at the start of the cycle, a lot of people start entering the space and care about crypto assets, but that's when they are the most susceptible to being scammed and or indoctrinated into buying a project that might not be good enough. And there's always the same questions, right? Like, how can I buy into crypto assets? Which assets are the next Bitcoin? What are smart contracts, and why does that even matter? And when will my Dogecoin make me a millionaire? So it's always the same questions. And really, the reason we started this community was because I wanted my people, the ones that wanted to enter the space, to have a safe harbor to converse and to talk in detail about crypto assets with people that knew what they were talking about, and they've been in the space for quite some time. So I created a community of around 120 people, where like the majority of them were earlier stage people or trying to find a community that they want to be part of, while a few of them would be experts that I have selected and invited to work with us because I knew them from the industry for being builders and being in the space during the crypto winter, as we call it, between 2018 and 2019, 2020. So I added the experts in there. We became quite an active community. And from that, it gradually became clear that the interests of people lie outside of just the basic investing and holding or trading dynamics, and yield farming and other sophisticated investments gradually became more and more popular conversation topics. But many of these people that were part of the community could not do yield farming, could not LP tokens effectively across multiple chains, could not perceive and understand the use and the value of NFTs and other assets that were emerging during the start of the cycle in 2021.
So did a lot of
Yet,
people reach out to you in the beginning before you started? Is that what, like, or was it just from your research? Like, did people come contact you like, oh, I need advice on this, I can't do this, I can't do that? Or was it just from you looking into the space that you saw this kind of gap?
so the first thing that happened was the community. And the community happened because people were coming to me asking me questions, the same questions. And I decided to just add them into one group. So if I answer one question, everybody would know about it. And they can ask each other and help educate each other, because the best way to learn is to educate others.
Right.
So because of we had the newbies in, and people gradually started talking about yield farming and other sophisticated investments, and the newbies didn't know what to do, we realized there was a gap, and they were coming at us and asking us to manage money for them. Now, we're more than happy to do that, but we got to do it in a way that is akin to what we hold as principles of Web3, right? We wanted to find a way to do it in a permissionless, decentralized manner, where we wouldn't have a custody over the assets. And that's quite difficult as a problem if you do cross-chain yield farming. Because if you yield farm some of the assets, even if they're not your assets, but you might manage them, then you lose custody and control over them. They might get dragged, they might disappear. And trying to find a solution for cross-chain yield farming was the start of what became Athens DAO. We were trying to find a way to allow other people to invest alongside us, where we were able to raise the capital from the community, yet the expertise would also be raised by the community and managed by the experts that were part of the community, right?
Right.
So that's why Athens DAO became what Athens DAO is. But what it is right now is a bit more than just that. Because I work with regulations and policy and I know what's coming in Europe, I understood that the moment any legislation passes, DeFi would be held accountable to some standards which were very difficult for most protocols, especially if they did custody and management of funds for other people. So I decided that if we do a DAO like Athens DAO, where we have a committee-based governance system where the governance and the management of the assets is done by different committees, and the committees are elected by the people on a regular basis, but for a longer period of time. If we were to do this, we should do it in a very compliant manner. We want, and we're not fully launched yet. We want to be the first legal DAO in Europe. And the reason we're doing this is because not only are we able to shield the risk of our members by having a legal entity around us, but because we can also get licensed, if there is a license, or get approved by national competent authorities when regulations come for crypto assets. And we can also build a couple of investment vehicles which would allow traditional investors to participate in the treasury of the DAO, allowing us access to professional funds that we would not be able to access otherwise. And if that's a big enough pool of funds, the incentives, which is payouts for the successful investment of the committees, would be done in stablecoin or fiat format and in levels that would vastly exceed if any of the committee members were to gain their investment 100%. What does that mean? Let me give you an example. We have Athens DAO, and Athens DAO has 3 committees. One committee is the Investment Research Committee. They do the research and they provide the information that you might need for the Treasury Committee, which is the second committee to actually do an investment. The Treasury Committee is 7 people who control a multisig. Not just one multisig, by the way, but multiple multisigs across many different networks and channels. And the Treasury Committee will look at the data provided by the Investment Research Committee and come to an agreement over a strategy of what needs to happen. That can be buying convex or curve and trying to influence some of the assets in the pools. It can be moving some of the funds into Binance Smart Chain or BNB chain, as it's called now, and try to do some investments over there, which it's quite risky. It could be buying a metaverse land and trying to build on top of it and then resell it afterwards. It could be all sorts of investments where they'd be able to take the pool raised by the DAO and invest it. Let's assume that we have $100. We invest it in a yield farming project and it returns back $200. So we made 100% return, right? Well, 80%, 79% of these of that fund, of these monies, are just going to be put back into the treasury and returned to the LPs if they desire to cash out. And $21 out of these 100, that was the pure return, will be given to the committee as a reward. Now, one of the $20 would go to the treasury for backup. So really 20% would go to the committee members. And then there is a certain breakdown of how these are given to members depending on whether they came up with the proposal, voted for the proposal, vetted the proposal, and executed the proposal, right? So these 3 steps have different levels of what's the word? I'm forgetting one word. Give me 1 second. Of engagement. Yes. So if you propose the proposal, you need to take the time to read that, to write it down, to understand what you want to do, to come up with the insights. If you vet the proposal and vote for it, you need to make sure that the proposal that's been given to you by one of the members of the committee is up to par. And for you to execute the proposal, you need to take the money and use it in a way that you need to monitor in a constant basis until you want us to remove the investment and bring it back to the treasury. So as you understand, voting and vetting is important, but it's significantly less work than if you are the author of the proposal and the executor of the proposal. So the people that do these benefit significant amount of money. So if you are a voter, executor, and a proposer of a proposal, you get something like 70% of the income that is generated by the investment. So he would take that $20 that we made in the previous example, and he would make 70% out of that, which is like $15, right? It's a bit less than that in reality, but for our model, because it's a little bit more nuanced. But that's the main concept. Now that $15 is not that much money if you are investing $100. But if you're investing $10 million, $20 million or more, then that becomes a significant amount of money, to the point where that 70% of the 20% of the return can be significantly more money because of the underlying capital than if you were to put all of your portfolio into one investment and make 100% of that. Because we are compliant and we're able to access capital from traditional financial ecosystems and companies. Does that make sense so far?
Yeah, actually it does. But one thing I wanted to kind of make clear for me also and the audience is what did you mean by having a legal DAO? So what's the difference between a legal DAO and one that hasn't been legalized, and what does it mean to be legalized?
So legal DAO means a DAO that has the legal wrapper. So a company, an entity behind it. There's a lot of laws in America, but there's virtually none in Europe that I'm familiar with. Some of these are the LAO, which is what you call legal DAOs, LAOs. And the LAO is an investment DAO that has Delaware LLC and is headed by Open Law. And Open Law are known for also building Red DAO and Flamingo DAO. From what I understand, both Red DAO and Flamingo DAO have an LLC behind them as well, which is a Delaware LLC that is a limited liability company that limits the liability of people who are part of the DAO. Now, I don't know about Red DAO, but I know Flamingo DAO, they definitely have a legal entity behind them. Because it's done by the same team, I would be very surprised if Red DAO didn't have a legal entity. You also have companies like Moloch DAO, not companies, projects like Moloch DAO, protocols like Moloch DAO, which came out with a number of tools that we want to use, for example, claim tokens. But these are very nuanced, and we can talk about them later. But they also have an LLC. And you see gradually more and more companies looking into Wyoming and seeing if Wyoming can have a legal entity behind them as well. So legal DAOs are DAOs with legal entity, and the reason they exist with legal entity is to be compliant and shield liability, which is the reason why companies and corporations started to begin with, right? They provide a legal entity that you can bill and you can use to funnel and manage money, and to deal with wages of people that you'd like to hire. And you also have it because the people that have put the money in are shielded by the liability provided by this corporate entity. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think you cleared that out.
Does that address? I hope that addresses your question.
Yeah, maybe we can actually talk a little bit about why you made the decision to kind of base this in Greece. I mean, it's even in the name, like Athens DAO. What made you, I'm not sure if you're permanently living here. I'm not sure if you are about, but what made you choose to have your Athens DAO, based here and not go somewhere else where it could potentially be even easier?
Well, that's a great question. Listen, we are based here as a community, but the entities that we've made are not in Greece. The lab is based in Cyprus, and the investment vehicles are going to be based either in Luxembourg, Estonia, or Switzerland. We're looking at that right now, actually. Why we are using these jurisdictions is because they are better suited and more flexible to manage a highly innovative project like us. Most of these people, when they hear about DAOs and crypto, they have no idea what we're talking about, right? So in the three jurisdictions that perhaps know about this is Luxembourg, Estonia, and Switzerland, which is the center in Europe, really, for DAOs and Web3. But Athens DAO and Athens, Greece is an integral part of our identity. Well, first of all, we do have a lot of people that are based in Greece, and Athens is the capital, as well as the cultural capital, you could say, of ancient Greece. It's the peak of the ancient Greek polis. It is the start of democracy, at least in theory. It is many reasons why Athens is a global brand that is known by a lot of people, and many reasons why we aspire to be connected to Athens. There is one main reason why Athens DAO became, two main reasons. One is more important than the other. Let's start by the least important one. Athens DAO is a globally recognized brand, because it's Athens and everybody knows Athens. So combining the DAO to Athens makes sense because Athens is known. Therefore, somebody can understand and remember Athens DAO quite quickly. It happened before Olympus DAO blew up, so we didn't get influenced by them by any means, by the way, because people ask us about this. Furthermore, ATH is the name of our token, and ATH is also an all-time high. So as a marketing, for the marketing reasons, it fits all of the boxes, right? So the token is ATH out of Athens, but it stands for something that everybody likes, which is an ATH performance of any coin. It has alpha in the start of its name, so it's always going to be at the first DAOs that you see in a list if we were listed as that. And the understanding of Athens as a cultural center is still very much real, right? So these are the marketing and the important reasons, but not the most important reasons why we did this. The main reason why we did this and we named ourselves Athens DAO, however, is Athens DAO wants to be the biggest stakeholder in this space. Now, what does that mean? That means that we want to use our structure and incentives and compliance to be able to access capital that other people and other DAOs can't. And we want to do it in a way that is going to allow people to have a voice over the investments and to use these insights to reward them for being part of us. We know Web3 is a paradigm shift, a big one. We know that it's actually, it might be bigger as a paradigm shift than the creation of democracy. I wouldn't say that very easily, but you could say that democracy was created in 2000 years ago in Athens, but it became formalized in the world system in the 1800s, right? So we are now going through a paradigm shift in my mind that is equal to what happened to society in the 1800s, if not bigger, because we're never going to be able to go back, right? We will have the internet forever, and we will have crypto assets and blockchain forever because they are an integral layer and infrastructure layer for the internet.
So how do you think it's gonna like change things moving forward?
We'll talk about that in a second, but back to Athens and why we call Athens is because we know that the space is going to grow for a long time, and Athens DAO could be something like a beacon for decentralized governance and the new state of democracy that includes stakeholder and ownership in a democratic way that is based on incentives and not on authority and centralized structures. That's part of the reason why we do this. And that's why Athens is a big part of our brand and our name. And I hope that makes sense. It's a bit nuanced, really, but we expect that DAOs would become some of the biggest stakeholders in the space and the next web companies that you'd see because they're so embedded into the nature and fabric of what it means to be in Web3. So yeah, now back to the question that you just asked me, right? Like, what does it mean? What type of changes do we expect Web3 and blockchain to bring to society, right? That's a very good question, but I want to verify that that's what you asked me, right? Did you have another take in your mind for this
But actually,
question?
before we go on to that question, just to finish off on the Greece thing, say you achieve, everything that you want to achieve with Athens DAO and everything goes well, which I hope it does. Do you think it's going to impact Greece in any sort of way? Do you think it could change things for Greece in a positive way?
That's a great question. I do. I really believe that building a DAO like Athens DAO and building projects like Rare Candy and others in the space which are emerging this year and last year is very, very much needed and very delayed. There is very few projects that are worth anybody's time that came out of Greece in Web3 space. You have Koinomi, which is one of the biggest and best wallets out there, and I recommend it to everyone. You have a number of people that are globally known brands and names within crypto assets, but you don't have a Greek unicorn or a Greek flagship project that showcases the existence of the Greek ecosystem in crypto. While that's quite different with what's happening in Cyprus or in Turkey or in Malta or in Bulgaria and in Romania. In Bulgaria, you have Nexo. In Romania, you have Elro. In Turkey, you have the largest ownership of crypto assets outside of Asia,
I think. In Cyprus, you have multiple 100 million plus ICOs and projects which have based themselves there. In Malta, it's supposed to be the blockchain island, right? So Italy has multiple projects in the AR, VR, metaverse, and many other spaces, like even smart contracts like Algorand is based in Italy and very influenced by Italian people, right? So there's so many projects which are coming out from all of the jurisdictions next to Greece that it's insane to me that there's nothing coming out of Greece that has legitimate, worthwhile future and understands and has the basis to go far in Web3. We have some projects which come out of Greece, but most of them are complete trash and scam. And I'm happy to name them, but it's going to bring me a bunch of hate afterwards, so I'd rather not. But so many projects come up here and promise the world and deliver nothing. And we can't be like that, right? We need a success that is going to help tie together the Greek ecosystem for Web3 and help it emerge.
What do you
So
think
that's
do for like the infrastructures of, like government infrastructures, like social infrastructures? What do you think, if implementing these projects, like you said, Athens DAO, Rare Candy, if all these projects do well and they bring some sort of light onto, Greece, what do you think you could change in terms of the infrastructure internally in Greece? What would you at least like to see?
the infrastructure is going to change gradually because it's already gradually become more and more digitized, right? The government, the Pyrakakis, has done a good job making things more digitized. Now the question is making it less centralized and more decentralized and more representative over the people. But really, I don't believe the infrastructure is going to be the one that needs the most amount of change. What I do believe needs the most amount of change is the mentality of people here, right? There's many people who are young who want to be part of Web3 and want to make money and want to have good careers, but they're not given these opportunities. With Web3, you don't need to leave Greece to have opportunities. You don't need to have backing from your family to go abroad to study or work for a couple of years so you can make an okay earning and living. You can do and compete on a global scale from your bedroom and your office, home office, right? That's the whole beauty of Web3. Like, we need to show the fact that you can build things here on a global scale, because that is going to mentally touch people in ways that you wouldn't imagine, right? Like, this success breeds more success. And with Web3, incentives are set in a way that both and everyone can win. It can be a win-win situation. So the more people understand that, the more they can start cooperating and starting adopting crypto assets, because it benefits them to do so. And if that happens and there is a significant mentality switch here, which I believe is due, and it's going to come at some point in our lifetime, I believe Greece can become a center for crypto asset usage and creation. So really, if I were to have a hope, is that one of us succeeds like crazy and we go out there and make a buzz out of our success, and we invite and welcome newer people in this community and help them get to more success, and then everybody wins, right? So that's really what I believe must happen and needs to happen. At some point, it's going to happen, whether it's going to be us or somebody else that we don't know, that might emerge out of nowhere and just kick our asses, sort of my French. I'm welcoming, because we need a flagship project to lead Greece's crypto space.
Yeah, I completely agree. And being united in this front, is only beneficial for all of us. And it's just a shame, growing up seeing so many people leaving Greece for that exact reason. And I think what you said, the point you made about Web3 creates opportunities that weren't there before. And essentially, you don't have to leave. You don't have to leave the country just to go make money elsewhere or find opportunities elsewhere. I think even just that would be an important change that needs to happen, because I've spoke to many different people of all ages, and they all have this thing of like, our country doesn't want us, sort of thing. Like, it doesn't create opportunities for us. It wants us to leave. So if we could see even that change, for me personally, that would be a win. But maybe moving on to the other question, because I would like to hear about your thoughts about the future that we were talking about. How do you feel that you kind of compared it to the adoption of how did you phrase it? that you said
The
before?
internet. It's in my mind, blockchain is a fundamental infrastructure layer for the internet moving forward, and the internet is never going to go away, and thus neither will blockchain and crypto assets.
Right.
I think that's what you were referring to, right?
Yeah, you almost compared it to like the next evolution of democracy, of web,
Democracy.
you know. So how do you think, how do you, because what you said is a big statement, and I would like to just, you know, touch upon that point. I'm just curious, how are you thinking about it?
That's indeed a very big statement. So how am I thinking of this? Well, with digital assets that you can protect with NFTs, you can have passive income from items that you produce on the web in ways that you could not imagine in the past. I expect NFTs to become an infrastructure layer because of this. And that means that their average price is going to drop, but revenue from them is going to increase in the long run. I expect that's going to be one of the biggest changes for content creators and creators in the internet in general. That's the first. The other one is DAOs. DAOs, which is what we are trying to build right now, are entities that you can exit whenever you feel like it, and you can enter whenever you feel like it. And depending on your reputation and your value, the higher up you will rank within these DAOs. Now, DAOs are the new corporations, and this fluid ability to enter and leave a corporation without having an employee contract or without needing all sorts of interviews and other types of things to build a reputation before you actually do things. It's going to allow employment to change forever. It's also going to arguably change the way we look at democracy, because you can start doing some of voting online. I also believe it's going to fragment economies into specialized micro units. You've seen this happen in China or the UAE, where they create these small zones which focus on specific things. For example, one zone can do manufacturing in China, the other can do hardware and tech. Shenzhen was a special economic zone, for example, that made China the center of industrial production for high tech. I expect that these silos are going to happen in a digital space, where you can have people that care about tourism working out of Greece with DAOs that want to deal with tourism, or you can have some of these working out of Totrigono in Thessaly, which is where most of the production of agricultural products comes out of Greece, right? Where they can use Web3 in a way in this silo to achieve higher efficiencies and ideally production, right? So I expect all of these things in a very economic centric way to change. But when economies change and income, the way you make income changes, so with many other things afterwards. So I expect that it will help enrich people in ways that we haven't envisioned, and wealthier people that are more cash rich are able to take higher risks, which goes back to the mentality thing that we discussed about before, and with the demands that they make over the government or any government. Now, I can go into how I envision governance to change in the state level with blockchain and Web3, but that would, I don't know where to start there, and I don't know where to end, because there's so many things that can change. This industry was made by dreamers that believe government can be limited to the point that it's barely needed if you have code doing most of the governance. But of course, that's a two-sided blade, because if you allow code and math to run everything, what happens if you don't have the needed cash or authority to do something when an emergency happens, right? The standard example of this would be a mother is trying to take her baby to the hospital but doesn't have the money to do so. The code is never going to allow her on a bus that's public transportation, but a driver and any human would, because it's more important that she goes to the hospital than pays the fare to be on the bus. That's an example. I really do think that there's many ways that things can change, but really more than anything, so I look forward to the limitation of large sectors that don't need micromanagement and centralized management. They can be automated, and I'd like to leave it there. Otherwise, it's going to become quite a few more statements that will be big and
Right.
will come chasing afterwards.
It's interesting that you said that point, actually, because it's one, it's something that I notice as well, and it's one of my fears. Watching, it's almost kind of like, I don't know if you've seen the film Idiocracy, where it's like set in the future and everything's automated to the point where you can't do anything, like you said. And so, like, what I'm saying is, your point is great, and that's something that I've been thinking. Do you think there is a way to kind of peacefully kind of coexist with this kind of AI technology and kind of the more human nature? I know we're going into like other fields now, cyborgs and human
Ethics
kind
and
of,
stuff.
yeah, but I don't want to get into too much of that. I don't want to go into in that lane, but just even the simple thing that you said, if there's everything's automated and things need to be done and there's no kind of human emotion or attachment to it, do you think that it could peacefully coexist? Do you think it's going to cause some other kind of problem, or how do you view it?
I am certain that's going to cause a lot of problems at the start, and while we try to hash out how it actually works and how it becomes balanced, right? So I expect the adoption of these technologies a lot more, but because I believe that they are going to get adopted, we're going to see a lot of issues in the start. As long as the incentives behind the lawmakers that are building these things is up to par, I don't think it's going to be that big of a problem in the long run. But
The thing is,
this is
who's making the code, and
exactly
who is it
who's
helping?
making the code, who's making the calls of what's going to change, and who's it helping. That's 100% the correct issue, right? This happens with policy right now too. And who writes the laws that deal with subsidies on agriculture in the US? It's the large farms, which gets the most amount of money from subsidies, and are incentivized to make more subsidies come their way because that makes them more money than if they just did their own crops.
Right.
If you have a bus company that wants to make the most amount of money and they write the law for how AI payments will take place under this IoT-infused Web3 future, then they are going to be incentivized to make sure that these human touches don't happen, because that's lost revenue for them, and that's not really what they want. The incentives there would be not aligned. Therefore, really the incentives and the writing of the code and of the call should be done in a directly democratic way. I don't know how that's going to happen. There's going to be friction in the start, like with anything. But then it's going to hopefully make our lives much easier.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I'm all for like automizing things, that don't need more time spent on them than just doing it by themselves. But my thinking is like, sorry, I completely lost my train of thought. I think you should you continue.
It happens. Listen. Perhaps we can talk a bit about. I mean, like, what would you like us to talk about now? Like, because we can talk about Athens Labs, we can talk about one of the other projects that we're building, we can talk about the DAO a bit more, we can talk about a proposal that I'm writing that is going to get published literally today, as a big
Actually,
bet.
one of the projects I saw, the tulips. Maybe you can talk to us about what the NFT tulips are.
So NFT Tulips didn't really go anywhere, but I can talk to you about them because the concept is good. So really, my job in the labs is to come up with good tokenomic models that make sense and make us money. Then the job of my co-founder, Dr. Theodunas, would be to build the project alongside our team. And I'm also the consensus ambassador to Greece. So I access the academy and I offer 10 positions to full stack devs that want to go into Solidity. So we build a community that is engaging and learning Solidity and smart contracts, and we're building with them. So NFT Tulips was very similar to what BitCloud is doing and what some other projects are doing. So we know that Instagram is one of the biggest holders of content, and that allows these content to become very viral. And we know that a lot of these influencers only make income because of the clout that it gives them to have a lot of followers, and because of the revenues from advertisement. That's how they make money. Somebody pays them to advertise something. They don't make money from the content themselves. And funny thing is that the reason they go and make money the other way around is because their content becomes viral or is popular enough. So NFT Tulips aimed to take the information of likes from an image of an influencer, and the more likes it got, the more rare the NFTs that it would mint would be. So it would incentivize people to buy the NFTs and help spread and like the content of the image, because the more they did so, the more value their NFT which they held of the initial content would be. So it pretty much helped align the virality and with the rarity of the NFT. And if the rarity of the NFT is high and there is popularity behind it, then the value of the NFT can be high as well, giving these influencers another way to monetize their content in a more direct manner than advertisements. And
so would the NFT be the actual image itself or the Instagram post?
Yeah, the image itself,
okay.
not the Instagram post.
Right.
Although the way that the protocol was going to read the rarity metrics, it would be through the likes. Now, one of the main reasons that we couldn't make this thing work is because, well, the team wasn't that impressed with the idea, because we're just helping people who are models on Instagram. The other one was because Instagram is changing their API to hide likes. So we need to find another way for us to measure what viral and what popularity means. Now, the main concept would be that, okay, we would hit some targets. For example, if your photo has less than 10,000 likes, there would be like 100 copies of it. If it was 50,000 likes, it would be 25, and then would scale it gradually down if you hit targets. If it is 100,000, it would be 10. If it was 1 million likes, it would be only one NFT out of that content, allowing you to say that, oh, that's a very rare piece of content because it got 1 million likes. I mean, do you want to buy something that nobody knows? Do you want to buy something that has 1 million likes and is rare? It would make a lot more sense that way, if that makes sense. That was the concept, and I still think it has a lot of value and it's going to happen at some point. I haven't seen anyone do it like that. At least I haven't seen it, because I stopped caring about it that much after the summer. That was one of the projects that we wanted to test, and we might go back into it. Athens Labs is a venture studio, so we need to keep testing and iterating new projects to see what sticks. The project that we're working right now on, that I'm very excited on, besides Athens DAO, is the Keros idea. And I brought that up earlier, but I can tell you a bit more right now. So Athens Labs, alongside a team which includes multiple people that are very well known in the art and culture space of Greece, as well as Cambridge University. We are working with the Keros team that is at the Cambridge team that is at Keros doing the excavation and archaeological research to unearth artifacts and produce some outputs from these artifacts that we will sell as NFTs. And we're doing this because we want to raise money to give back to the excavation, to help support and provide another way for fundraising for them. So really what we're doing is we're looking at the daggers that came out of Keros. So a very brief history lesson. Keros is a site that is between Koufonisia and Naxos. It is uninhabited by law, so no one is allowed to live there because it's full of ancient ruins. And the Cambridge team has been working on the site since the 60s. It features items from the early Bronze era. This means 2,500 BC. That's 4,500 years ago. That was 2,000 years before Athens and Sparta. That was 1,000 years or 500 to 1,000 years before Knossos and the Cretians. So we're talking about the very, very early start of our civilization in the Cycladic. And the dagger was a dagger that was a symbol that of leaders in the community that were able to do a pilgrimage towards Keros with items and raw materials from around the island of the Cyclades. So these daggers were the first information-based currency or badge. It was a badge pretty much for the most important people in the Cycladic society of the early Bronze era. So what we are doing is we found the mold for these daggers, which is a huge find, by the way. It's not complete, so half of it needs to be completed. So the goal of the Keros idea is to complete the the molds, and then produce outputs on a digital format from these molds. That's going to be one of the NFTs. The other NFT will be the sharpening and beating of the blade after it's been outputted by the molds. So that's the second version builds on top of the first one. The third NFT is going to be the final digital version of these daggers. And that would be the first thing. The second step would be physically making these daggers. So we would take the digital side of things and we would actually do them. So we would 3D print the mold, both of the molds, the one that we made and the one that we found. We would create an actual metallic output, which we would then 3D scan and make into NFTs. The fifth step would be sharpening and making sure that we beat the blade into the correct point that it's supposed to be. And the last version would be actually tying it all together and adding a handle and widgets, and actually selling the NFT alongside the physical item. So these 6 NFTs would represent the academic and scientific research behind the dagger, as well as the path it took for us to bring it back into life after 4,500 years ago. And these NFTs would actually be rare because they would be based on artifacts that are extremely rare and have a lot of substance behind them. So I'm very excited about this project. It's the first time I talk about this publicly, but it's coming soon, and we are working with a great team, and we are getting the authorization we need to speak and bring this publicly, because that was part of the reasons why we delayed this. But it's going to be a project that's going to run for the next few months, and it's going to hopefully change the way that we look at artifacts, because antiquities and artifacts are illegal to hold in your hands, and there's millions and billions dollars worth of artifacts held in private collections. If the Keros idea works, we can showcase a legal way to represent artifacts in NFT format, and we can gradually shift the market of illegal antiquities to the digital side of things, where it's going to be legal to own these NFTs, and they will incentivize the antiquities collectors to bring their antiquities back into the light, as long as they get to keep their NFTs, which is a great way for them to make income out of their collection. And
Right.
this happens more and more often now, because many people the collectors are becoming very old and dying, and they can't give these collections to their kids because they're illegal to sell. What's the point? You're making them criminals, right? So it's an interesting concept, one that I care about a lot. I'm happy to tell you a bit more about some other things that we're building, but you tell me if we have time.
Well, we have to slowly wrap up, but I just want to maybe talk a little bit about the future, maybe some future goals for Athens DAO, or what you think is most important that you want to share, because I know you're involved with a bunch of projects that we probably haven't even gotten into, so I'll leave it up to you.
So the most important thing for me is for Athens DAO to officially launch and to be able to get income and money to manage from legal entities and from the vehicles that we've set up. That's going to be very costly. It's going to cost us around 100,000 to build the fund and maintain it for a year or two. And that's just the price in the market. So that's going to be a pretty big deal for us. We've already started the community and the processes, but we just need to finish the legal entities and officially launch. That means that we might need to raise some capital for us to do some expenditures, which is difficult for someone that doesn't have a complete full-on product yet, because of the legal entity side of things. So that's Athens DAO, and we want this to go forward. For the next 6 months, I'm also going to be working very actively with the Keros idea, because I believe that the time is right for this to happen. And it seems to already have a lot of popular feelings and thoughts about what we're doing with the Keros idea. And lastly, the Athens Lab, which is building both of these projects and more, well, we need to solidify and actually build a full-on team. So we will start hiring and fundraising soon, but after our successes of the Keros idea and Athens DAO, because success breeds success, as I said before.
Well, maybe even
Immediately, go ahead, tell me.
Maybe even like you could come back at some point and we could only focus on the Keros idea, because I found it very interesting and we didn't really get into it too much because of time. But maybe you can come back when the project is launched, or maybe when you're working on stuff, and we can share some images and stuff to kind of promote and help like shine light on the concept.
I would love that. I would love that. So I'm happy to. I can tell you more about that when we fully launch, and that's gonna happen by the end of April. So by the end of April, we're gonna have everything that we might need for us to go public, and we would love to work with Erkan and your team for this, right? I mean, in our minds, you guys are the top one, top two people in Greece when it comes to NFTs. And the way that we go forward, all of us, is if we both support each other, because that's how you win-win. And that's the value of crypto.
For sure. Maybe we can even have an event in our Crypto Voxels gallery and we can showcase some of the cool NFTs that you guys have made.
That'd be fantastic. I think it's a very smart idea that you went on Crypto Voxels, guys. So I think it's a very good platform for showcasing such arts. And I think that would be fantastic. I will be very, very happy to hear that. And let's talk again about that soon.
Sweet. We can talk about it off mic. But I think that's all from our side. I don't know if you have, or you give me all your links and I'll have them all underneath. Do you have a Discord community?
I have a Discord community that I'm going to be sharing with you all. I have a Telegram, which is still quite private. We're trying to move people from Telegram to Discord, and that's a pain in the butt. One tip for all entrepreneurs in the space: if you are to build a community, just build it on Discord and don't segment it in different platforms. It's just one place and that's it. And I'm going to send you everything else that we might need: contacts, personal contacts, Telegram from myself and others, so that you have all the information for the labs and the DAO, and very soon afterwards the Keros idea.
Sweet. Okay. Well, Xenofon, thank you so much for coming and taking the time to be here. I had a great time finding out about your projects. Thank you guys for listening, for watching. Thank you again, and peace out.